Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DeFirio with Keys to the Shop, and welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Now, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at LaMarzoccoUSA.com. They have been making espresso machines at La Marzocco in Florence, Italy since 1927. They are the quintessential espresso machine of the coffee industry. They are reliable, beautiful, and innovative machines that are configured to lots of different tastes and needs, from highly technologically advanced to very manual and very tactile. The feel of a La Marzocco just feels like quality. And that's the kind of thing that gives you peace of mind to know that your coffee shop is being anchored by something that is designed to just work and to be reliable. I love their equipment, and anything from their espresso machines to their, they have the new grinder that has just come out called the Swan grinder. Really fantastic grinder. These are things you should be checking out at their website. But better yet, you can email info@lamarzoccoUSA.com and they will help you find the right machine for your cafe. So check them out again, lamarzoccoUSA.com. Also today, we're sponsored by our friends at Rattleware. Rattleware.com is where you should go to learn all of the different options they have to serve you with the whisks, knockboxes, shot glasses, and the pitchers. They are all about smallwares that just work. Smallwares you don't have to worry about. They don't want you to do anything except use their equipment, serve people great coffee all day long. It's simple. But somehow with other smallwares, it's not as simple, and you don't get that kind of reliability. So that's why I love them, and I think you will too. So go to their website and learn more at rattleware.com. Now, today's episode, we're going to be talking about something just briefly on each point here, I think, but maybe it could be a full episode, but we're going to make it a shift break today. It's about the departments in your cafe. It is about how you can create harmony between different departments of either front of house and back of house, or the roastery and the cafe, whatever sections your business has. Now, this is for those of you who have distinct sections where even it might be to the degree that you even have a manager of that section. And I know people and past clients who have had night managers and day managers because the change is so distinct. You might shift your management between daytime coffee and nighttime cocktails and wine bar. Again, you might have food in the back and then coffee up front and that kind of stuff. But the roastery and the cafe is a classic example as well. So it's all the same company, but there are different needs that each one has to accomplish the same goal. The goal being really, really great products consistently that people can enjoy. Roasted coffee, food, coffee drinks, so forth. So that means that a savvy operator would want to have harmony between those. But in order to have harmony, you need to know what note to hit. You need to already understand something about each section in order to know how to harmonize with it. This is just the way it works. So there are some things that you need to consider in order to bring about some good communication, good understanding between the sections of your cafe so they don't work against each other and in a silo. There's just enough specialization to make them good at their job, that very specific job, but there's just enough communication and understanding between these areas to create harmony and not interrupt momentum, and where you have to worry about constantly apologizing for one group to the other group. And there's a lot of go-between here. So first thing is cross-training. Now, that's cross-training between different departments. It doesn't mean that you have to be that person that works at every department. Now, for some people with smaller places, I like the idea of generalization of work and not specialization. When you get up to a certain threshold where a lot of business is being done with, like, let's say, baking and food, there's a lot of catering and events and in-house baking for the coffee shop, and the coffee shop itself is just really, really busy. It doesn't make sense per se at that time to have everybody trained to do everything. You need specialization because there is so much demand for each section in your business, and there's so much complexity added to it because of that demand, that you need specialized, focused attention. Even still, if that's the case, you want people to understand what life in that area is like. That builds empathy. Have you ever gone, if you're a barista, have you ever gone back to see what the kitchen does and how they accomplish, like, what does it do to them for you to change something last minute, to shift the information about a sandwich that might generate a whole domino effect of waste, frustration, ticket times going up? You then are a little bit more motivated up front to make decisions that are preemptive, protective. They're not as You're not as quick to, make these changes if you don't have to, or you at least want to talk to the customer in such a way that you are very clear about what is available, what they ordered, so that the order is pretty solid. And that is a way of serving those behind the bar. Cross training helps with this. I really think it's just about informing and considering what's going on and empathizing. If you had to be back there making a bunch of sandwiches, making a bunch of toasts, whatever, or doing a baking shift in the very early morning, I think a little empathy for everybody goes a long way. In the same way for the kitchen people, like, go up there and make a coffee and look at what's going on here. The thing you want to think about is, what are the priorities and the very important aspects of that job, and how do they connect to everything else? How does this impact everyone and everything? Because it does. The wake of your decision is felt by all boats. Eventually they turn into waves, and everyone starts to bob up and down in accordance to whatever it is that you did. And you can do that skillfully, or you can do it recklessly. So between departments, I think a good manager and a good owner creates avenues for understanding through informing, educating, participation, training, and allows people to know what that world is like, right? And learning those priorities and putting it into action looks like putting together checklists for people who have front of house tasks that help out the back of house. I'm just using this as an example. You could extend it further in your situation. But if the back of house is really short on large plates, for example, they need the baristas to go out into the cafe and get more large plates. Now, that might be an issue with, maybe you need more large plates. But whatever the constraint is right now and the priority is for them, when it's in your arena to do something to help them in that, that should be something you take action on, and it should be baked into the system as well. So it's our intention to help, but the intention oftentimes is interrupted by interruptions. And so we have to systematize so that the intentions are actually part of the work we do. And it's a discipline, not just a hope or not just a heart position that we have. So that's how, with the roastery, for example, the idea of what they do with the beans up front and the counts that they have to be accurate. Different steps that they take for giving feedback about taste need to be considered so that the roastery doesn't just get whims of people's opinions. They get maybe a more measured and investigated, well, why did the coffee taste bad? We don't just go blame the roaster. We say, well, maybe we didn't brew it right, or maybe something happened where we forgot about a bag of coffee and it got too old. We didn't check the date. We put it in the hopper anyway and brewed it. But for us, because we didn't know that, or we didn't have a protocol to actually use, we just go and we jump in and we say, hey, this coffee is bad, deal with it. No, we all should bear a little bit of a responsibility, both in the way that we think and the systems that we use, to help the other departments out as much as we can in our department. And so that's a big part of what I wanted to talk about today, because when we grow and when we scale our businesses, and I'm going to be talking about scaling responsibly in a workshop at Coffee Fest in the new year. So it's a new workshop I'm doing at Coffee Fest. This is part of it. when you grow, you lean into relationships. And if you want a good relationship, you've got understanding, curiosity, communication, compassion. You invest more into that person. You don't get more distant and more assumptive. And I think that's what ends up happening by default when we grow. So wherever you are right now, if you're listening to this, I think it's really helpful to consider what can you do to create harmony, empathy, understanding, and systems to back up and keep us disciplined and accountable for helping all different parts of the business that are connected to one another. So we're not just blithely going about doing our thing and then inadvertently causing this ripple effect that negatively impacts somebody else. We want what we do to be helpful, not hurtful. And these are some ways that you can go about it. So I hope that this was helpful. Let me know what you think. Of course, you can always comment on the YouTube videos, or you can comment on the reel on Instagram. You can DM me on Instagram at Keys to the Shop. Reach out for coaching and consulting at the email chris@keystotheshop.com, or you can go and click the discovery call link in my show notes here at the show, and subscribe where you can, all that. So I think I got all that out of the way. And anyhow, I appreciate you. I really appreciate the work you do, and listening to the show means a lot to me. So as always, I will see you here next week for another edition of Shift Break, from Keys to the Shop.